Trust the science. Okay. Okay. If that's what makes you feel smarter.
Numbers are going up. Numbers are going up.
So, hello everyone, once again from the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. If you're actually a socialist, you actually have to physically live here. Otherwise, you're just some sort of Western champagne socialist. Today, we're going to be talking about supposed conservative comedy. And you guys will know I've talked about this a couple of times. We've talked about the reasons why conservative comedy largely isn't funny. Not saying there aren't funny conservative people, because there are some funny conservative people, but the current brand of US conservative comedy, especially in the Trump era, is just really, really poor. And a lot of the time, these things aren't jokes. They're kind of just things told to an audience to confirm what they believe politically. And I think that's why it's so bad. There is no punchline. There is no attempt at a joke. It's basically like, haha, aren't the left stupid and aren't conservatives awesome? And also, what often good comedy does is either challenge the status quo, or comment on the status quo, or comment on the state of society. A lot of the times, these things aren't like necessarily like liberal or leftist, but they are written by liberals or more often leftists because these people have a point of view about the status quo and finding comedy within that. But truth be told, I wanted to make this video because I want to talk about the Babylon Bee, which I think is literally one of the most unfunny comedy sites, I guess, or like satire sites. Trying to be this conservative version of The Onion. And as we're going to go into, there are multiple reasons why it's just so terrible. A lot of the time is also something I see across conservative circles is the attempts at jokes just really border on pop culture reference and here's your favorite conservative guy. This happens a lot when they try and make satire and jokes involving Elon Musk, who they massively simp for. So we're going to get into all of that in the video. But before we go any further, please like the video. And in the comments for today's question, what is literally like the worst conservative comedy you've ever seen? I might show you it in the video, but let me know anyway. Also, consider following me on social media at the Kavernacle on Twitter and on Instagram. On Instagram, I'm posting a lot about living in Vietnam and stuff that is going on my story and on my highlights for each month. So if you care about that stuff, maybe check out my Instagram. Also consider becoming a patron. I'm trying to build up as many $1 to $3 patrons as possible. And the benefits of that are getting access to my Nintendo Switch friend code and the Discord server. I'm also going to be posting like exclusive content there about my travels. I'm going to try and get an edited Vietnam one up before I move to Cambodia, so look out for that if you are a patron already. Also check out the second channel in the description and also check out the subreddit. So to really get us going, before we start talking more about the Babylon Bee, and we're going to watch one of their own YouTube videos before talking about their terrible satire on their site. Now, conservative comedy is always absolutely cringe-inducing, and I actually get embarrassed watching it, like secondhand embarrassment. So please give me a like if you haven't already for just sitting through some of this stuff. I thought we'd just start with some good old Dave Rubin, just to get into like the heart of like what conservative stand-up is, and like, is there any point to what they're saying besides the left are crazy or something like that. So let's have a look at some of Dave Rubin's stand-up from last year.
I will give these 4 shirts out throughout the course of the evening to the 4 most oppressed people in the crowd. Yes, sir. What is your oppression? You have to think about it. Okay. Yes, ma'am, right there. Single mother raising 2 kids by herself. That's pretty good. Yes, ma'am. Middle school teacher for 37 years. Jen Psaki is the most dishonest. The woman, if you asked her what her favorite color was, she would say 4. She is completely incapable of saying anything true. But who else? So we got Nancy Pelosi, which, Jesus, Nancy Pelosi, she is 162 years old. She looks like the Crypt Keeper, okay? She used to host a show on HBO on Friday nights. Some of you may remember. She would tell these really bizarro stories. They'd let her out of the thing. You remember? You remember? Do we have any black lesbians in the crowd? Oh, woo! You were wooing. You're not a black lesbian, sir. He identifies as a black lesbian. You're all black lesbians tonight. You feel good. It feels good to say, I am a black lesbian. I'm a black lesbian. All right, you know what? As long as we're doing the black lesbian thing.
So sorry for putting you guys through that, but I just thought it was a good starting place. Like, what is really the joke here? Like, these aren't jokes, are they? Just saying stuff about, like, oppression, or I think as Dave Rubin likes to call it historically, like the oppression Olympics, talking about people identifying as a black lesbian is just like a spin on the stupid attack helicopter joke with a weird twist to it. But again, what is funny about that? I don't understand. Is that funny to anyone? Can someone please explain to me what is the joke? Just people shouting that they identify as a black lesbian? Because I guess it's funny that black women who are lesbians face inherently more barriers in life than other people, so we should all just start saying I identify as a black lesbian in a crowd, and that is just all hilarious. And then he just had various other jokes that are just so like boomer, and they're just not even funny. Like, this is just the very, very worst of conservative comedy. It doesn't help that Dave Rubin is just terrible at stand-up anyway, but just like saying buzzwords and talking about people Republicans hate is not comedy inherently. But I just plays into my mindset that a lot of conservatives don't actually care about comedy themselves. They don't care about laughing. They just find pleasure and I guess humor in sitting in a crowd together and having someone on stage say something that validates their own political opinions, because that is basically what conservative comedy is these days. Well, it kind of is. And as an extension of this is kind of what this is as well. But this is just absolutely insane. This is just a mad person screaming on stage called Jim Brewer. And he's basically just talking about stuff to do with the pandemic and saying like how ridiculous it is. And it's ridiculous because he says it in a funny voice and makes funny faces. So that's the joke, right? It's not trying to make any critique, not trying to make any satire about inherently funny situations you may have encountered during the pandemic, because there are like funny and crazy stuff that everyone has been subjected to. No, just running around talking about trust the science and squawking like a bird and just generally being really crazy. But again, some conservatives might like this because in a very bizarre way, like, confirms their politics. Let's have a look at a clip of this guy doing his stand-up routine.
And everyone that wants to talk to you about facts and science. No, these are the facts. And that's all I see when they talk like that. No, this is real. It's the facts because I researched it. There's like little parakeets just waiting for the news to come on, walking in there. And then the news comes on.
Dr. Fauci's on! Dr. Fauci's on! These are facts! These are facts! Trust the science! Trust the science!
So if anyone has some background on this guy, I just had this sent to me on Twitter when asking for bad conservative comedy, and I just watched it and now I'm commenting on it. But what is this guy's deal? Like, I can see the inherent funniness in if I'm sitting in that audience thinking, this is a crazy man, but not from what he's saying, you know, talking about like pandemic restrictions and the science and talking about people telling you to trust the science and not commenting on that at all, just screaming it over and over again in a funny voice. Like, is that supposed to be conservative comedy in 2021/2022? This is what you're reduced to. Running around like a crazy man, squawking like a bird, trying to get people to laugh at your stand-up routine, I guess, where you're basically referencing a couple things from the pandemic and just screaming them at the audience. But again, there are people laughing in the audience, and I don't think all of them are laughing because they just think this guy is absolutely unhinged. They're laughing because he is saying stuff that in their own mind is confirming their own political views. Like, they hate pandemic restrictions, they think it's all ridiculous, they don't like science, they don't like fact. I guess in a weird way, even this insane stand-up is confirming a lot of their biases, and that is all conservatives want these days. It's all they want from their movies, it's all they want from their TV, and evidently it's all they want from their stand-up as well, because it doesn't have to be funny, it just has to be political references they understand, and like I said, confirm their own political views. So we're going to have a look at one Babylon Bee video on their YouTube channel, basically talking about Californians who have moved to Texas. And you guys already know this is going to be absolutely hilarious, so let's have a look.
We're from Los Angeles.
Just moved to Texas.
I figured.
Oh, the California plates?
Well, yeah, and the masks. Inside your own house, no one else around. 2022.
We just want to be extra safe.
We feel naked without masks.
We'll probably wear them for the rest of our lives.
I live in that house over yonder. Name's Kevin.
Hi, Kevin. I'm Tiffany, she, her.
And I'm Steve, he, him.
What are your pronouns? Baby, he has a gun.
I'm calling the cops.
I'm recording you.
No.
Recording
It's
you.
okay. It's okay. It's just my sidearm. Everybody here has a gun.
Sorry, we don't really like guns. There's a lot of crime where we're from.
I understand. There's not a lot of crime here
Why?
because everybody here has a gun.
I don't think I can live like this.
Well, if it makes you feel more at home, we just recently replaced a lot of our electrical grid with unreliable wind power.
Baby.
It helps.
So do you guys see what I mean, where conservative comedy is basically just trying to confirm conservatives' own politics? So there's a narrative going around at the moment, pushed by people like Joe Rogan, that everyone is leaving California. California is a terrible place to live. Los Angeles is a terrible place to live. And everyone is fleeing to this absolute utopia of Texas. And I do also love how he references the power grid in Texas. Talking about like wind power being unreliable, not that the insane privatization of the Texas power grid has seen huge power cuts during times of like massive snowstorms, for example. But as you see in this video, just every single stereotype in the book about liberals from California. Apparently, most leftist couples like wear masks together inside. I know it is meant to be like satire. It's trying to make fun of these Californian people in general. But if you read the comments, a lot of people are like, that's what my neighbors are like. That's what all these crazy liberals are like. And this is what Babylon Bee thinks is funny, is trying to paint every person from California is like some sort of insane liberal. And like I said to you about this confirming their own politics, they're acting like everyone carrying guns lowers the crime rate. And I don't know what part of Texas is meant to be. Texas still has loads and loads of crime. And I don't think you have to be a hysterical liberal to not want an old man in a cowboy hat coming into your home with a pistol visible on his hip. I mean, even in parts of America, that is weird. That's not just me being like a European where you don't see many guns. Even to a lot of people in America where you can own a gun, walking into someone's home you've just met with your gun and justifying it by saying, well, it stops crime round here. Even though their reaction was obviously like over the top, very weird to make fun of these people being uncomfortable, random dudes walk into their homes with guns and be like, this is just our Republican utopia. But also conservatives don't really have many jokes. I guess they've added a couple with the pandemic with like masks, and now they have pronouns and masks and talking about how hysterical all liberals are. This whole sketch is meant to confirm a widely held myth by a lot of American conservatives about Texas and Florida and how California and places like that are absolute dumps and everyone wants to run away and move to Texas. So that was just a taste of the Babylon Bee, and I want to read some of its satire now. So I believe the Babylon Bee started out as a Christian satire alternative of The Onion, but it was bought out by a conservative group, and it basically now is just like a conservative version of The Onion. The problem being is that it does not satirize anything. Often when it tries to satirize something, It invents crazy scenarios based on pop culture. So anyway, I've picked out some of my favorite Babylon Bee satire pieces. I'm going to go through them together. And while I'm reading that, please can you think in your head, what is the satire here and where is the comedy? Because I think that's very important, because to me, a lot of it just seems like either simping or conservatives falling back on one of their few jokes, either about diversity, either about masks, or either about some sort of thing to do with pronouns and transgender people. So let's have a look at some articles. So I've been saving this one for ages because I couldn't even believe it when I read it. I think this is like one of the worst things I've ever read. So I'm Elon Musk, I'm here to rescue you, says Musk, while busting everyone out of Twitter Death Star detention level. So there Elon Musk is looking like Luke Skywalker, and it reads, Elon Musk and a brave band of adventurers snuck aboard the Twitter Death Star to free prisoners located on the space station's detention level. Sources with the Galactic Rebellion confirm Twitter Death Star, which resembles a small moon, was first spotted near the remains of Alderaan, a peaceful planet that was destroyed for believing in only two genders. Oh my god. The space station is equipped with a super blaster powered by kyber crystals, capable of cancelling anyone who opposes Twitter CEO Parag Agrawal. Musk reportedly disguised himself as a Twitter mod who was escorting a recently suspended free thinker to a banned chamber. Once inside, he dispatched the guards and then rushed for the nearest cell to free the prisoner inside. Aren't you a little short for a Twitter mod? Everyone says so, said a grizzled Trump. Over uniform, must remove his helmet. I'm Elon Musk, I'm here to rescue you. Wow, oh, you're the guy that does rockets. That's great, really terrific. According to sources, Musk was able to free Trump, the Babylon Bee, Unita Broderick, Alex Jones, Charlie Kirk, Tucker Carlson, and even some Rhodians. However, during their daring escape, Trump was killed in a trash compactor while trying to post on Truth Social. Musk and the Twitter prisoners reportedly escaped aboard a SpaceX Starship with Twitter Death Star in his rearview mirror. Musk vowed to either buy the deadly space station or destroy it. Why not both? He mused to himself. So this is just like so embarrassing. It's basically writing some sort of weird fan fiction about Elon Musk and how great he's going to be for conservatives if he actually could have bought Twitter. And again, what is the joke here? Is the joke that Elon Musk is now like a Star Wars character and you're just referencing Star Wars, and Twitter being like the Death Star? Again, I don't really understand this comparison. I just think it's just like an excuse to simp for Elon Musk and get his nerdy fan base to love him by including references to his SpaceX Starship and him being Luke Skywalker rescuing all of these people in the detention center. And you guys all know that Onion's satire is extremely biting. They will put it out whenever. They do not want to be like sensitive to political events. They will satirize them. If this is the equivalent, what even is this? It's not a satire. It isn't even really a commentary on current events or anything. It's just this bizarre, weird fan fiction. And can you imagine the type of person who finds this good or entertaining? Can you also imagine the type of person who pitches this in like a newsroom meeting and thinks it's a good idea? And can you imagine the guy's boss who actually thinks they should write this story? But again, like I've been saying, conservative comedy is just all about confirming their own political views. So apparently this is funny because Elon Musk is good, all those conservatives are good, and he's taken on Twitter. So funny. It just seems like they want to appeal to these really, really embarrassing conservatives who just, I don't know, live and breathe pop culture references like they're in an episode of The Big Bang Theory. So here's another one. AOC tearfully recounts how DeSantis yanked her from her Venezuelan home and sent her to Martha's Vineyard, where she died, obviously commenting on DeSantis' stunt where he sent refugees to Martha's Vineyard. So let's read this article. So opponents of Governor Ron DeSantis are outraged at yet another death that has allegedly occurred thanks to his political exploits. US Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tearfully recounted how the Florida governor yanked her from her Venezuelan home and sent her to Martha's Vineyard, where she died. Following her martyrdom, Ocasio-Cortez expressed hopes that Taylor Swift would sing at her funeral. After DeSantis recklessly shuttled 0.01% of the nation's illegal immigrants to a couple of posh liberal towns, Democratic lawmakers vowed to investigate whether any laws are broken. After finding no laws broken, the lawmakers then proposed a bill specifically aimed at preventing the use of immigrants as political pawns. This wasn't the first time I was killed against my will, says Ocasio-Cortez. And so help me, if it means just saving one child from dying in one of DeSantis's airplanes, it won't be the last. Following the somber funeral service, the body of Ocasio-Cortez will be returned to her homeland, where it will be fed to starving Venezuelans. Despite these guys simping for gross people like DeSantis, I don't really understand the joke because it doesn't fit into any semblance of reality. So AOC says she's died. She's had a funeral and then she's back to life saying she will die again. And then apparently now she's from like Venezuela. So I guess they're trying to satirize apparently her like virtue signaling with a lot of her stances on immigration. Remember that picture of her by, I think, like some sort of refugee internment camp, which the right were memeing loads for. But again, what is the actual joke here? And the thing is, I think this subject is actually a pretty easy one for humor, since Joe Biden has also been terrible on accepting refugees and immigrants to America. So there's a lot of room to point out the hypocrisy with the Democrats' outrage. But this take on it is just like not funny and lame. Like, these guys do not have a funny bone in their body, and especially the extent they go to where they're inventing bizarre situations like AOC having a funeral and then immediately rising from the grave or something. I guess trying to make the point that she always lies about things, but again, inventing bizarre situations and inserting current politics into them, like the Elon Musk Star Wars things, is not funny. So here's another one my fellow communists will like. New communist food delivery service just delivers you empty containers, then shoots you. Communists have jumped into the food delivery service scene with a new company, Red Apron, which will deliver empty boxes to your home and then kill you. We are so excited to bring the best that communist cuisine has to offer right to your doorstep, says founder Justin Castro. You can order steak, seafood, anything you want. No matter what you choose, we guarantee you will end up going hungry and being dragged away to the gulag or lined up against the wall. Mr. Castro said he was inspired to start Red Apron after hearing so many Americans praise the incredible riches of communist Cuba. It fills me with joy to hear Americans want to experience a little slice of communist life, he said as he loaded his pistol. We here at Red Apron allow everyone to get a taste of what total equality is really like. You pay for the basic subscription, you starve and go to the gulag. Do you want a premium subscription? Starvation and gulag, let's go spread some equality, boys. So this really makes me laugh, especially because I'm living in a communist run country right now, because it's basically like all good humor is lining up with American foreign policy and American general views about communism. But it also makes me laugh because it's talking about gulags. This is from a country which imprisons far more people than any other country in the world, including communist China, despite having less than a third of the population. And these guys want to talk about gulags. And also inconvenient truth for many Americans that communist countries improved many things for many people, including access to food, education, and healthcare. And I do love where it says here, the incredible riches of communist Cuba, where actual Americans go to Cuba for healthcare because their healthcare is so good and far more affordable than American healthcare. Very, very low-hanging fruit, using untrue stereotypes about communists, and it's just not funny because it's just generally taking a very, very easy to attack communist stereotype. And if maybe it went more in depth with like a specific communist nation or something like that, potentially there is room for humor here. You guys have seen that, and if you even know anything about the world, it's not true and just generally not written in a funny way and just generally not funny. So we've gone through a lot of those articles and those clips and stuff. And basically what we're seeing is conservative humor is make some ridiculous scenario but relate it to pop culture. Elon Musk, Star Wars. Apparently that's conservative comedy and satire. And as you heard from me reading those articles, weren't they so funny? Weren't they biting satire? I think The Onion has a lot to worry about from the guys writing the Babylon Bee, but even with their videos and the comedy sketches I showed you at the start, despite them all being like very different, basic premise is conservative comedy is there to reinforce conservative political views. They simp for Elon Musk, they simp for Ron DeSantis, they simp for other conservative political figures, and they demonize the left with really, really boring, outdated stereotypes that rely on one joke, well, maybe now like 3 jokes. So I think the problem here is I don't think conservative comedy can ever be funny. And like I said at the start, conservatives can be funny, but oftentimes when conservative comics are being funny, they're not making jokes just purely about politics, whereas everything I've showed you today is trying to make jokes purely about political issues and political figures. And the problem with conservatives is they often do not want to criticize their own side. They often do not want to call out the bad things their own side do, because a lot of conservative strength in preserving the status quo comes from their unity. That's why the Tory party are quite successful in the UK, in that even though there is infighting, they don't really let it get over to the public and they put on the face of a united front. In America, they do this a bit as well, where they will rally around the strongest figure. Remember how Ted Cruz used to speak about Donald Trump, and Donald Trump saying all that stuff about his wife, and then Ted Cruz was campaigning for Donald Trump and has had loads of nice things to say about Donald Trump. So from that point of view, it's probably not surprising that conservative comedians will not go after other conservatives because they believe it will threaten their own movement, or for people like Dave Rubin, threaten their grift. And I think liberal comedians, even if they are faced with the same situation where they don't really want to criticize their own side, I think there's a lot more material to use with conservatives just because of how insane they act. For example, if you are someone who is like a loyal Democratic voter, you never want to criticize the Democrats, watch the clips I showed you at the start, especially that Brewer guy, and you can easily make fun of that. You can make fun of conservative comedy. It's not hard. I do honestly think left-wing comedians are the most funny because they are willing to criticize everyone, where liberals still want to preserve the status quo to an extent, so their comedy still isn't as biting as it could be. And also I feel like the nature of being a leftist is that like we all hate each other so much and we hate different factions of leftists that we are perfectly happy to actually criticize left-wing politics and make fun of left-wing politics in a way that conservatives, and to a lesser extent, liberals, will never try and do. Anyway, I just wanted to make another video about conservative comedy, specifically focusing on the Babylon Bee. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments, and if you made it this far, thank you for watching.